What is going on, guys? Today we are gonna paint bone, specifically the bottom jaw of this skull. Now what I want to do is demonstrate a pretty cool way to paint some bone for miniatures. In this case we're painting it on a much larger thing, but you would just shrink down to whatever size project you're working on. And this is just going to be an exploration of painting bone. This isn't how I've always done it. I'm just going to show you how you can play back and forth with your ghost dry brushes and get a pretty cool effect. This is the same ghost dry brush I've been using on every video I've shown dry brushing. So these are what I'm going to be having on Kickstarter. And look at that. They're still holding up very, very well, even when I drop them. So to get started, this is Stynylrez Black Primer. Go ahead and check out my video where I show you to put the little nylon piece in there to filter it. If you haven't done that already, it makes it easier for airbrushing. And that is what we prime the skull with. This is a resin human skull. So shake up the paint. We're going to start with Rhinox Hide. And this is going to be our base coat. And hopefully you'll enjoy this. So this one, as far as a base coat, we don't need to wipe all the paint off like a dry brush. That's not really the purpose of this. But we will be wiping off some of it and controlling how much is on our brush, because I don't mind seeing some of the black still shine through. So we're just going to start applying this brown, and this would be more like an overbrush. You see those marks, how there's kind of a streakiness to them? I know it's probably hard to see right now. You can see the wet. So we're just building up a brown coat, dark brown. And this is going to be the darkest shadows of the skull. This brown is going to be pretty thin layers, even though we're using it, pretty much right out of the pot, just on a piece of cardboard here. And that's going to give us really, really dark shadows as we build up away from this color. I'm not going to do the bottom part of the jaw because that part would probably be sitting on a table or something, right? It's going to be sitting on that part. So we'll just leave that black. That'll be like our base. So just working the brown. Got a little bit of mist primer there, so I'm going to just dab it in with the brown. Painting the jawbone here brown. We're using Rhinox Hide. Very, very easy. Haven't done anything impressive yet, right? I'm just coloring in this skull with Rhinox Hide. And that's how easy painting can be, especially when you approach it like you're just going to have some fun, right? I have some colors here next to me. I don't have any plan on which one I'm going to use per se. I don't have any, final practice of this exact recipe. I didn't test this beforehand. I'm just showing you with a cool miniature, in this case a skull, a nice dry brush, and some paints, specifically kind of brown to ivories. You can paint some pretty nice looking bones. And we are almost done here with the base coat of the brown. Now when you're using a dry brush, it being dry is important for the dry brush to work. Now ours is going to be damp for a while because we're going to rinse it now. And that's going to leave a lot of moisture. Look at this dark water. I'm going to rinse it in. That's going to leave a lot of moisture. Ooh. We are washing the dry brush. Leave a lot of moisture in the brush. So even though we're going to wipe it off and try to get all the paint out, these brushes are really soft and they hold a lot of paint, a lot of moisture, a lot of pigment. But we're going to keep moving from there. So there might still be some in there, but that's fine because actually to get a more natural look, it's better if these colors somewhat blend. So we're going to switch to Mournfang Brown from Citadel Air. When dry brushing, it's not a bad idea to use, denser, thicker paint. You don't really need to thin it. Once again, when you are dry brushing, things that are less dry are less effective. But what we're basically demonstrating first would be what you would call overbrushing or wet brushing. Still using the dry brush to do so. And we're going to put it right on that Rhinox Hide because we are hoping some of that Rhinox Hide mixes in with our brown here, with our Mournfang brown. So we'll just start right here. And this is, it's similar to a dry brush in the fact that I'm just doing big sweeping things, big sweeping paintbrush motions. I think I went off camera there. Sorry. I'm doing big sweeping brush motions. But what's happening is I'm not doing full coverage. I'm just nonchalantly hitting all the surfaces with this Mournfang brown. And we're just letting the brush do all the work. It's going to naturally, not deposit as much pigment in any deep recesses, which is good. Like on here, for example, if we want to leave the inside of that jaw dark, we would paint perpendicular to it. And then that's going to hit both edges and not so much in the middle. But we're so early in the paint stage here that we really are just trying to lay down some paint. Build it up. We're trying to cover the black primer, and we're letting that black primer basically be helping the dark shadows of this jaw here, of the skull. Now, I went a little heavy here just to demonstrate something for you. See that? It's going to dry pretty clear though, and you don't have to worry about it. Just keep going. Keep going. Keep dry brushing. Don't be afraid to really rub your brush in there. I mean, look, it's going to look like that, but once it's clean, it's going to go right back to how it's supposed to go. And if you get any stray hairs, you can just cut them off. We're not being easy on these brushes, so it's okay if they get a little damage. But so far, this one hasn't had any signs of wear and tear or damage, and I've been using it a lot. And a lot of these videos, too, so you can check them out right here on the channel. I don't think we're going to need to wash the brush right now, so we're going to go straight into the next one. This one's a little weird, probably. It's really dried out and nasty, but I'm using it because of that. And that's Death World Forest. And because it's so nasty and dried out, I'm not really going to get a lot of color out of it. It's supposed to... The only paint in here is basically thinner water that I added to this dried up crappy paint. So we're going to just stir that with the brown. Basically, see how runny that is? And actually, let's go in with a little bit more of Mournfang brown. Just see that? We're just touching it right there. And we're going to mix it in with that Death World Forest green water. You can use any color here, a purple, a green, a blue. Would all be fine. Just make sure they're dark neutral. And once again, now the brush is really wet now. You can see it's really depositing a lot of paint. But that's okay. So we're going to start right back here on the jaw. And this is just going to give us a slight variation of the brown. And we're going to do this quick. We don't actually need this to be everywhere. We're just going to build up a pattern here. Or not a pattern, but like a natural, not, random pattern, I guess. And all we're doing, quickly just putting the brown with a little bit of that green water kind of color in. Oh, sorry, I know I'm kind of new to painting this long on stream without a quick demo. So hopefully you stick around because this is going to look really cool. And I have every intention of this being a pretty long one so I can show you the whole process. Or at least the whole process up to the point of something you could, then go back in and put some nice details on. All right, so you see here we got a fairly brown skull. The jawbone of this human is looking more in line with nature and less like it was found in a wildfire or a fire. So there we go. Brush is washed. The reason the hairs are sticking together, like you see how there's like almost a texture of clumping of hair, is that's because it's not dry. when the brush is dry, it looks like this. And you can see how soft and separated all the hairs are. But when they're wet, they clump up. See that? But that will go back to the other way once it's dry. So that's how you know for sure there's moisture in this brush, is the hairs are starting to clump up together. And we can actually demonstrate that probably here on this. So this here, perfectly clean. And if I'm going to push down, and then you can see moisture came out. I can push down with my finger on it. See, and actually quite a bit of paint, water, or moisture is coming out. So if we had brush soap and we were done, we would maybe use that on this one. But we are trying to demonstrate this in just the most standard, easy, user-friendly way possible. So we're not even going to bother with that. We're going to go straight to a bone color now. And that bone color is going to be Ushabti Bone. Now this one, we're going to mix again with a touch of Mournfang Brown, because I don't want to jump straight to bone yet. Although I could. If you're just trying to do this on a miniature, you know, a little skeleton for your undead army, something like that, don't be afraid to just jump right to the bone color. And this shouldn't actually affect my paint very much. There is paint on this brush. There is a different color paint in this pot, and I'm just going to run it right through there. And you see I put all that paint on my brush, and basically I don't see any of that brown paint in that Ushabti Bone. So that's a way you can get your paint out without worrying too much about contaminating your whole pot, which you would have to put a lot of paint in there to actually contaminate the whole pot. So I don't think you need to worry about it. Okay, we got a lot of paint here. And let's just try downward strokes for you here. Actually, we'll go kind of like an angle. So this is kind of like an overbrush, because their brush still has too much paint and too much moisture in it. But what we got there is we're building up a pattern. You see, there's no actual plan for this. I'm just taking the brush and dragging it across and letting the texture of the surface do the work. So let's get inside the jaw here and back here. And as we make more and more brush strokes, the less paint will be on the brush. So that'll kind of help the process here. And we'll just continue along here. And once again, this is still early on in the stages. We could be going back and forth as many times as we want. I'm going to speed it up here a little bit for you. And that just, you know, you could go back and forth as many times as you want until you get the effect you want. And we've only used a couple colors here. We're letting them naturally mix on the model. We're not worried about anything. There's no wrong way to do this. Super, super easy. And you can see here, it's quick and we're just building it up, right? We want just the brush to do all the work. This is really one of the benefits of using a dry brush, is you get a lot of great texture and quality out of your brush stroke without doing anything, right? It probably looks like I'm just stabbing at it, but look at that already. I mean, we're building up a nice bone texture. Now underneath we're just leaving black, but let's compare it real quick. I'm going to wash that. And just a rinse here. And we'll let that actually dry off a little bit for this next part. So I'm just going to show you real quick. Let's see how different in that amount of time, 15 minutes of work. Look at that. I mean, that is looking pretty cool already. Now we're going to do the whole skull eventually, but I was hoping to do it on live stream. I just can't figure out how to get my camera to look like this on the live stream for YouTube. So there you go. Just 15 minutes of work and we already have a nice brown, more neutral, natural base for the skull. So hopefully you like that. Let's try to work out a lot of the moisture here on our dry brush. You can hopefully you can see that. You see that slight little bit of color deposited or possibly moisture? These things hold a lot of potential water or paint, so they're awesome. They can go a long way as far as coverage, but when you clean them, make sure you give them an extra rinse so you have a perfectly good brush when it's all dry. Now let's go back to a shop debone and let's go right into what will be a more traditional dry brush. So looks like we got a little bit of that other color, and that's fine. Maybe we'll even purposely pick up a little bit. And we're going to really work it into this cardboard. And you can see right now that we know the brush has little enough paint on it that we can continue on our dry brush. Let's start back here. And this is a little more short, controlled brushes. Back and, not even back and forth. I'm going one direction. This direction to this direction. Top, down. Top, down. So it's in, down, out. In, down, out. And that's what's going to give us a nice build up here. We can do slightly bigger ones here down the inside of the jaw. Remember, this is the inside of the skull, so it is less important as far as if you were going to display this skull on your bookcase or something. And I'll link you to the skull. I think this skull is really, really cool. And I'll put a link to it. So if you want to pick up one of these skulls and paint one, I would love to see how you do it. And this is still the same initial load of paint that we put on our brush. So we're still got plenty of paint on here that we're using to highlight and build up a more natural looking bone. If you go different directions, you're going to start hitting all the shadows, but that's okay in these early layers still. Because remember, we could bring this all the way up to, white if we wanted like a sun bleached bone or something. So there we go. We're going to put a little bit more on the brush. And this is just a piece of cardboard, right? We're not even using anything special. Super easy. Anybody could do this. Now, one thing that is a little cause of concern is right here. I can see that little part right there looks like exposed resin. So I don't know if the primer didn't stick right there, and hopefully that doesn't cause a lot of primer to come off the model with it. But I think we'll be okay. So we're going to keep working in the paint. You can see on the back of the hand here, barely any paint. But once you start putting it on this skeleton, picking out those highlights. Now, last time the color I went this direction. And so with this next color, I'm going to go the opposite direction just to build a little bit of a patchwork of color. And that's just purely for fun. Any kind of texture on these surfaces is going to read as the item because that's what your eyeball does. If you see a skull and it has any real form of texture, that looks natural, then your brain's going to tell you looks like a skull. So, and it looks like we're building up quite a bit of nice, go back in on the inside here a little bit. And let's start working on this side here. Last time we went this direction, that direction. So this time we're going to go the opposite. And it looks like we're about out of paint on our brush here, even with slightly reloading it. So let's take a little more of the Ushapti bone, stamp it out on there. And I like rubbing it in circles on the cardboard to really work all that paint into the hairs of the dry brush. You can see it there. But there's a little more on this one, but that's okay. We're going to go with it. So there we go. We're getting some real highlights there. Now, that first test brush right here, when I went like that, showed me there's quite a bit of paint on this. So I'm doing controlled single strokes because I don't want to accidentally completely cover I don't want to accidentally completely cover all the work I've done. Now it looks like I'm going fast, but I'm doing this just at a faster pace. But I am making sure that I have it controlled. And I'm still only going one direction. And sometimes I might switch that direction if I see an area looks like it's remaining too dark. And there we go. Oh yeah, that built up a nice highlight on the chin. And what we're doing here is, once again, remember there's no wrong answer, no right answer. The right answer is it looks good, and hopefully it's going to look good on your bookshelf or displayed, or maybe you're going to do some big skull terrain or something. But I've always liked basically human skulls for like still life paintings and stuff. I think they always look really cool. And because we're human, we relate to them, right? So that's just, I don't know. Maybe you're not into it, but I think one of these would look really cool on your desk. So I just want to show you again. I'm not going to even wash this right now, so that should be fine. But I wanted you to be able to check back how much progress we've made. Look at that. I mean, that's, looks like I got a little on the side of his head there. That's already probably good enough. If you went back in and reinforce some shadows, I mean, you're looking pretty good. What I really want to do, though, is probably separate the teeth in tone than the jawbone. But that's already looking pretty darn cool. And how we're going to do that is, next we're going to do Screaming Skull. Now, look how gunky this GW paint got. GW paint. And we're just, this one's going to be a stark highlight. Look how light that is compared to the previous bone color. So this one we're going to have to be a little more careful. So we're really going to spend the extra time and work it out on our piece of cardboard or paper towel. You can push it down. See, when you push it down, a lot of that paint's squeezed out. Check it on your hand. And we're going to go straight to the teeth with this. And just pick out those teeth. What I would actually like to do is go back and, well, what I actually am going to do is go back and work more on this off camera. But I want to show you just, I mean, this was so easy. We didn't do anything. I was barely paying attention to the actual model. I was looking at the screen to see if I was even in focus or on camera, basically. And look what we've accomplished in just a short amount of time. With a couple paints, we used 4 or 5 paints. And you could be done right here. You could do the whole thing. Just dry brush it with this Screaming Skull color. Right now we just wanted to leave a little bit of separation from tooth to jaw here. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Now what I plan on doing, I'm going to go in after off camera. I'm going to dry brush the whole thing, Screaming Skull. I'm going to dry brush colors into it, and I'm going to add washes, and like I'm going to use this contrast paint on it to start building up variety. And that's just going to keep adding to it, right? There's no wrong answer. There's no way to mess it up. Even if you accidentally put a big splodge of paint, you could quickly wash it off with your brush, dip it in water and really wash it off. This dry brush could do that. You could dip it in this water and rinse it off. And hopefully the under layers are dry and they'll be fine. And you could keep working as much as you want. Play around with, maybe put some like rust corrosion type colors in between the teeth or in the molars here, just to give it like food is impacted in there when the skull was dug up. So let me give this a quick rinse. Next time you see me dry brushing, it's going to be highlighting this bad boy, which hopefully you think looks pretty cool. I'm working on him, and I'm going to be doing some dry brush highlights to like his chest and abdomen and cheekbone, maybe his forehead a little bit. So I got to finish his eye, his teeth. I got to finish the horns on his head. Actually, it's not the same colors, but the horns and this jaw using actually probably different browns and tans and or ivories kind of still comes out the same. So I guess I do like this, these kind of colors for bones. But there you go. Rinse off. Rinse, 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 rinse. And next time when we're doing the Cyclops there, this will be using the same brush. So hopefully you watch this brush take a beating right now. I was rubbing it on, right? I'm rubbing it on cardboard. I'm smashing it into the skull piece, back of my hand. I'm rinsing it in this dirty, dirty water onto these Taco Bell napkins. And it's going to be just fine. This brush is still going to be just as good as new. Obviously, we got some staining on the handle, but that's just because I'm holding this while I'm painting it. But check it out. Hopefully you like this. I just want to show you one last time what we achieved here in about 0 effort. Now that has got to look pretty cool. And I think that might be a thumbnail right there. Look at that. And that was no effort. We'll do it to the whole skull, and we'll be seeing you. So, please subscribe. Thank you very much, Skull. And also, please leave a comment below. Ghost dry brushes. January 17th is the launch on Kickstarter. Get excited. Ah! See you there.